Welcome to Caffeinated Coaching, the show on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, which we drink a lot of caffeinated beverages and talk to coaches of all types. Today, we're talking to Adina O'Neill. She is a triathlon coach and a big swimmer, loves swimming, and she has a all-inclusive triathlon team. So we will talk about that today. It's great to have you here. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Lori, I'm great. How are you?
Good. It's been a little while since I have chatted live with you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
So I see you have your Be Real triathlon shirt on,
Yep.
advertising for the team. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your team. I did a little intro, but you can obviously speak a lot more to it.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm Adina O'Neill. At Team Be Real, our focus is on real fitness for ordinary people who are becoming or feeling like extraordinary athletes. We like to help the regular people feel that they can be empowered to achieve any fitness goal. Our ideal clients are anyone from a working mom, a later in life athlete, menopausal women, raising my hand on that one. And we're looking to build our community of belonging, belief, confidence, and just conquer that like overwhelming feeling of everything that endurance sports can throw at you with some practical steps so that ultimately people really do feel confident to go after whatever they want.
That is, awesome. I know that you do have a range of athletes like all over. I've
Yeah.
spoken to your team a couple times, which is very fun and always good to meet and talk to everyone. Um, what would you say like people come to you maybe the most for?
Um, I would say so. Two things came to mind quickly. The first thing is swimming, because as you said, I am an avid swimmer, and unlike many triathlon coaches, um, um, there are triathlon coaches who do like swimming, but I think we are in the minority. Like there's not as many triathletes who love the swim the way I love the swim. I know a few. And so a lot of people come to me. They're like, oh, well, I like triathlon, but I really need help with my swim. And the reverse is also true that people are like, well, I really love to swim and I want to work with a coach who also loves to swim. So that swim is a big pull. And the other thing is just kind of the general confidence that a lot of what I call them non-traditional athletes tend to lack when they're entering in the endurance sport community. The whole idea of you shouldn't walk when you run, or you're too slow, or you're too fat, or you're too old, or too anything. I like to celebrate everybody for whatever it is they're accomplishing. And I think I kind of walk the walk in that I am not a traditional looking athlete. Sometimes when people think of what an athlete is, they don't think of someone who's short and overweight and slow. So, I think that a lot of people say, well, wow, you're really authentic and you're real. And we know that you understand us. And so then there's that piece that really builds a quick connection, and trust, which is important to having a coaching relationship.
I think it's really important that I have a big problem with the toxicity of, well, if you don't run this speed, you're not a runner. Well, if you don't swim, in a lake that doesn't have a current to help you, then you're not a swimmer. I I've been in the community so long that I've probably heard it all. Occasionally someone comes out with something new, um, that I'm just like, wow, I can't believe you said that out loud. uh,
Yeah.
which is a response I get a lot from people. Wow, I can't believe you said that out loud. So when I say it to someone, it's really like, wow, like I'm
Yeah.
really shocked you said that out loud. But if I were an athlete that was coming to you to coach and I'm just not sure of myself, but I'd like to get into triathlon, what is like maybe one or two things that you would give as advice or focus on first?
Well, as every coach, the typical response is it depends, right? Because it really is dependent upon each athlete and what their where their starting point is. The first thing I do with any athlete who I speak with, even people who I know, who I've maybe like on Team Be Real, we also have a group coaching program. So if I work with someone in the group coaching program, and even if I know them through that, I have some idea, I don't know the whole picture. Like when you start to work with someone one on one, you got to start from the beginning, say, where are you at right now, and really figure out where that starting point is. And so then I kind of, give that back to the athlete, like where you are is your starting point. And that's exactly the best place to be, because, well, you can't be anyplace else anyway, but where
Start
you
where
are
you are.
where you are is where you are, and that's your starting point, and there's no judgment around that. And so I really try to encourage everybody to be proud of where they are. And look, if you're at ground zero, the only place to go is up, right? So that's the first thing, is I really try to encourage and make any athlete understand that where you are is the perfect place to start. And then we just move forward. That's always the starting point. And to decide what your metrics are, there's so many ways to measure success in endurance sports. It can be time, it can be distance, it can be pace, it can be just number of days, consistency, it can be, just how happy you are, right? There's so
Yeah.
many different ways to measure your success, that there's only good to come out of it. So I was really trying to encourage each person to have their own journey, and decide what that is and move forward from there.
I think that your own journey is very important. First, before I say that, I'm going to give a shout out to your accountant past, because the it depends answer is the very accountant answer to everything as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there are a lot of us in these sports that were accountants. Jamil, who owns Aravipa Running, is a traditional accountant. Brittany, who owns Sunrise Trails Coaching, she is trained as an accountant. I am an accountant. My
Hey,
day job is accounting.
there's there's a lot of statistics in endurance coaching, right?
Yeah,
And
and I
there's a
think
lot
we've
of
all lived the high pressure situation maybe, so, like, this
yeah,
is relaxing comparatively, but to
true.
your other point of start where you are and your own journey is your own journey. I saw someone on Threads yesterday, a couple days ago, who said I DNF'd my marathon attempt, but it was interesting because their post, they had a screenshot of their Strava that said you have a 30K PR, and I said you didn't DNF a marathon, you have a 30K PR. I mean, let's take the thought and spin the prism of thought and make it positive instead of, and you have your own journey, so you didn't go 26.2 miles the first time you tried, but you went 20, and a lot of people can't even say that they have run 20 miles. And it's also, you learned, so the next time you can do things a little differently. The first time I went out and attempted 100 miles, I didn't go 100 miles. I kind of just mentally gave up on it. I was just like, I could be at the beach and I don't have to be here. And so I don't actually consider that a failure. I needed to get that day, I went to a race, and I needed to get a virtual race for the New York City Marathon qualifier. So really my goal was to just get that qualifier for the New York City Marathon, which I did. But so I never counted it as a failure. My journey was, today I don't feel like 100 miles, but today I feel like getting this marathon qualifier, which is really what I needed, what I came here for. And so that was my positive journey on the way to 100 miles, and which I did finish. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just everybody has a journey, and
I,
it's
I,
not
I,
going to look like yours or anyone else's.
right. I can't agree more about like the finding the positive in everything that you do. And, DNF, I'm always like, so you may not have finished that race, but it's better than DNS, did not start, right? And even if mentally, like you were saying with your race, if mentally you're not in a place to start a race and you make a decision not to, like, that's important too. Like, that's a learning process, that how we use our own mental strength throughout the process is to be celebrated. And it's all a learning process. Everything you do, a lot of people are talking, oh, but I failed. I was just on the phone with an athlete who I work with, and he says to me, well, the way I see it is the only time you fail is when you stop learning from your mistakes. And I was like, well, I'm writing that down. I was like, that's a great one. And it's true. Like, we're all going to make mistakes, and we're going to use those mistakes to help keep us moving forward. And at whatever pace we move at, that's my book. I wrote, Forward is a Pace, right? Because you make these mistakes and you keep moving forward. And I think it's Ohm always likes to use the fail forward.
Yeah, so we love fail forward, fail big. Also, you brought this up a little bit. So, DNFing, dreams not finished. It doesn't have to stand
Oh,
for did not finish, dreams not finished.
yeah,
That's another thing. And you mentioned DNSing. So, I am also here to normalize DNSing.
yeah,
I do not say that it is worse than DNFing. I do not say it's better than DNFing. It is a valid way you feel that day. I
yeah,
know plenty of runners who, probably even elites, I don't off the top of my head, but sub elites who also, like, you know what? They woke up, they're like, I'm just not doing this today.
yeah.
I actually had the worst race of my life as far as like traumatizing lightning storm, a day that I did not think that I should have started the race. Like, I went there, I mentioned to Jason, I was like, I feel weird. Like, this race feels like it has some sort of ominous, like, bad thing in it. And he was like, well, I'm going to start the race because, I came here for it. And he was like, you can do what you want. And I started the race against my better judgment, and then it turned into the worst race I've ever been in. An entire monsoon and lightning right above us, and they stopped the race after, I don't know, an hour and a half or something. But you had to get to the next checkpoint basically to get out of the monsoon. It was
Oh, yeah,
anyway, it was terrible. But DNSing can be a good thing too. If you realize you wake up one day, you don't feel good, don't want there will be another race. Wait,
absolutely. Yeah,
just go when you feel better, ready. There's nothing wrong with not feeling ready or not feeling the vibes that day. As the
absolutely.
kids say, the vibes.
The vibes. Yeah.
Vibes are
Uh,
off.
yeah. For me also, DNS, when there's a connotation outside of racing. I don't do a lot of racing anymore, and some people don't like to race, right? They like the training, and even people say, oh, well, I ran 26.2 miles, but I didn't do a marathon. It's like, yes, you did, just because it wasn't part of a race, right? So, like, for me also, DNS is that starting, right? Like, starting your training, starting whatever it is. And it doesn't always have to be at a race. But I am 100% on board with, if you get somewhere and you're not feeling it. Look, nobody knows what is in, my brother calls it your invisible backpack, right? It's
Yeah.
like, people are carrying things around. I mean, I know you well enough to know, and you're very vocal about your medical struggles, right? And people versus able bodies, disabled bodies. You have no idea what's in people's invisible backpack.
Yep.
And only
That is
you
a
know
cool
what you're
term,
carrying.
invisible backpack.
Yeah, yep, yep,
Props to your brother
yep,
too. That's
yep.
my invisible backpack today is full of a lot of things to do that
Right.
nobody knows.
Yeah. And only you know what you're carrying around, and only you can make the decision for what's right. So, when you meet up with a coach for a first time, it's up to you to tell that coach what's in your invisible backpack, and build that trust that they're going to say, all right, well, let's talk about it and see what things you can deal with in the backpack. What things can we take out of the backpack? What do we have to work with? Because some of the things we put in the backpack on our own, and some of the things we just, that's our lot in life that we have to deal with. So,
And sometimes we take things and put them in the backpack that we shouldn't, but
yeah.
we have. And until we learn to put them down because they're not ours to carry, then we're going to have them in that invisible backpack. So it's going to weigh you down a bit.
100. Yeah.
On the topic of your book, you wrote a book,
Yeah.
Forward is a Pace.
Yeah.
Would you call that book, I don't want you to have to give away like the farm, but would you call that book like positive, encouraging messages, notes to the everyday athlete?
It definitely contains that. It's a little handbook um, that gives you an idea of what it's like. It's based on triathlon and swimming, because that's me. And it really is kind of my story of how I went from an awkward athlete to a confident coach, and also tells the stories of some of the athletes I've worked with. I'm a big believer, as you guys are, which is how, you know, Jason and I connected in the first place, to just keep sharing your story and keep sharing your story, because someone is going to read your story and say, I relate to that.
Yeah.
Or they're going to say, that's where I want to go. Even if you feel like you're not ahead of anybody else, and it's everybody, I mean, competition is normal. I mean, everything is a race and everything is who came in first. But it's a progression and a process, right? So I may be one step ahead of somebody else, and they're going to hear my story and say, that inspired me.
Yep.
And so within the book, we've got some, you know, some stories from some of the athletes that I've trained. And again, my own personal story, because that's the story I know the best. And just some advice and some, yeah, some feel good positivity to get out there. And I have some very nice friends who purchased my book who are not athletes. And they keep writing to me and they're like, I find myself walking around in my everyday life just saying, forward is a pace. It's
Yeah.
the whole concept is you just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And
It's a little bit like perfect is the enemy of good. Like,
yep,
good is good.
that's
Like,
right. Yeah,
perfect. I talk about this too much, is that my brain doesn't have a perfect, like, it doesn't understand that because of the way that I was raised. And so the other day I was given 100% positive feedback on something, and yet I sat for almost an hour trying to make it better. Like, I don't,
yeah,
how do you make it better? You don't. And so it's important for people to understand that perfect isn't really a thing anyway.
no,
Who's defining this? It's your perception of perfect. And
yeah,
forward is a pace. And I've probably said it on every episode of this, your mess is your message. And
yeah,
so in your case, yeah, your mess, quote unquote,
right,
is your message in this book, it sounds like. And
yeah.
so I, because of my doctorate, have not had a chance to read it yet, but definitely plan to. And I think
Thank
it's
you.
great that you put your story out there and you shared the stories of other people. Uh, one
I
thing,
want to say I saw your post the other day about that you saw the 100% and wanted to get better, and I totally related to that, because you know that is how we improve, right? That, and then that's again that analytical mind that says, okay, well, yeah, this is really good, but where am I going next? You know, and what is the next forward pace? And it's not always a linear forward progression, right? And just because you've reached 100%, that doesn't mean you've reached the end,
no,
right? And that's why that's one thing that I think that I appreciate about when I watch your posts, is that like, yeah, oh, I got 100%, but I'm not going to sit there and be happy with it. I know that I can still learn and grow, maybe not on this paper or this
this,
whatever was graded, but in another, like in an adjacent field, right? Or an adjacent topic or a related topic. So that way you do just keep moving forward. And sometimes it's sideways and sometimes it's backwards, but all of that creates that forward
The
momentum.
momentum, yes. You make a good point with the learning maybe adjacently, or is that sometimes like we don't need to be and we don't have to be, and I'm definitely not a one trick pony. You're not a one trick pony either. You swim
No,
and maybe
no,
that's your favorite thing to do, but you
right.
also do all of these other things. I mean, I can see behind you all of the medals, and those didn't just swimming, because to my knowledge there's not a billion swimming medals out there. There's not a huge proponent, but that also comes back to the choosing a coach, because you mentioned a little while ago in the knowing what's in your invisible backpack and telling your coach that and trusting them, but you also have to know that you can trust the coach understands what's in your invisible backpack, and that they're going to appreciate that, and that they're going to coach you in a way that deals with that. I
Uh-huh.
have had various coaches throughout my life as an athlete, and which has spanned way too long to talk about here, but some of them don't understand that. Like,
No.
I was going through a huge life change at one point, and it was I was hearing, but you still need to get your runs in, and I was like, that's just so not going to happen today.
Yeah.
I am not going out. To the point that one Sunday morning I woke up, I had a 20 miler to do, and I just went, I'm not doing it. I don't care what
Yeah.
words come to me from anyone today. I do not have the mental or physical capacity to go run 20 miles today, and I'm just not going to. And so you really need to understand that different coaches are different. You and I have had this
Yeah.
conversation before
Oh,
too,
for sure.
which
Yeah.
is everyone can get certified. It does not necessarily make them a great coach or a
No.
great fit for the athlete.
That's right.
So
That's right. Like,
that
I mean, I'll be quite frank with you. Like, if someone wants to like dig into every detail of every data point within their stuff, I'm not the coach for you. Right? Like,
those
that's
coaches
not.
exist. I can
Those
point you
coaches
to some.
exist. Those coaches exist, and they are for the people who want to do. I like the data. I like the trends, because I wouldn't be an accountant if I didn't like the data. Like, there'd be
Yeah.
something wrong with me. But I find it is so important to get the extra piece. Talk about your mental status and how much emotional whatever baggage you're carrying around at the moment, because all of that plays into a factor. And you cannot get any of that off of a statistic.
Yeah.
You can't get that off a smartwatch, or a Whoop, or an Aura Ring, or any of those things. And they're so important. We actually, last year at the Triathlon Exchange, we sat through. They were talking about heart rate variability, and at the end of the presentation, someone raised the question and said, "Well, if my heart rate variability is telling me that it's a good day to run, but I don't feel great, what should I do?" And the guy says, "Well, you knowing your body and how you feel is always the most important thing."
Yeah. I'm a big fan of heart rate variability and watching it, but I don't obsess about any numbers, even as a person who deals a lot with
Yep.
statistical data and data in general. But you're right. It's your body. You know your body. Even if your HRV or your Whoop says you're at 100, I've worn a
Yep.
Whoop for over a year. And a lot of times I set PRs when it said I had 10%.
Yeah.
Later they came out with, and I could tell this, and I had mentioned to other people that they were just generalizing data that was definitely not personalized to me,
Oh.
because I set a 50K PR when it said I was at like 13% or something.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I'm not using one now, but the data is great when coupled with how you feel. So we
Yeah.
do have a comment that I want to address that says, why not be happy, sit back and enjoy what you have accomplished? I also think that is great. I have also worked with coaches who are like, stop being so hard on yourself. Look at what you accomplished. Take a look back 2 weeks when you're upset about your pace in Training Peaks or Garmin or Strava, and
Yeah.
look back and see that where you have come. Like, even 2 3 weeks, you could, if you ran the same or a similar run, you can see improvements even in a short time. So I believe you definitely are one of those coaches that says, sit back and enjoy what you have accomplished, as well as trying to get better. So that is also a part of it. And there are great coaches who do that. We are almost out of time. So this is a question that I give to everyone. Are you a caffeine drinker, and what is your favorite caffeine?
I do not drink caffeine. I am naturally this wired, and I often say to people, "You do not want to see what happens when I drink caffeine."
Oh,
It's the very first time that I use a caffeinated like pre-workout supplement. No one suggested to me to take like half a dose or anything
oh wow.
because I don't drink coffee. I don't drink tea. I mean, even the tea I drink after cold swims, it's not caffeinated tea because that's not a smart plan to combine the two. And so the very first time I did it, I was still teaching at the time, and I just went out for my regular morning swims, just an hour swim that was a typical workout for me. And the entire rest of the day, I was like, I was like, okay. Like I had like this out of body experience. It was so freaky. So I learned that unless I'm doing an extremely intense workout or a long distance workout, I need to lay off. I can't even use the supplements. But the flip side of that is if I'm in, in the middle, like halfway through my Ironman, when I like grabbed
Oh
a
yeah.
caffeinated
Something.
gel, it really helped because I'm not used to drinking and in taking in the caffeine as much. So I get a really good boost from caffeine when I do take it on
Funny.
in a event of any kind. But yeah, no, I do not like coffee. The only time I will drink coffee is if my husband and I go out, like for if we're going out at night and it's late, like to dinner and then like to a concert. We go to a lot of concerts.
You do.
He
I
he
see that.
he loves espresso, and so one time he's like, "Oh, just to have an espresso," like because sometimes I'll bring my like
That's the thing you want to go to when you're not a coffee drinker.
but I'll if I'll try to bring my whatever it's called, my pre-workout,
Oh yeah.
like I'll bring something with me so I can drink it. And if I forget, he's like, well, he says to me, well, have an espresso. And I was like, oh, but it's so gross. But I've learned to just do it like a shot. So I
Yeah,
was
does
like,
he do the straight like the shot, like an actual shot of espresso usually, or do
uh,
you?
oh, he likes a double espresso, and he loves coffee. He likes the taste. He picked that up when we lived
He's
in France.
also an accountant
He
audience,
he
so
is also an accountant. But yeah, no, he loved the coffee. Like when we lived in France, he was like so happy, and everyone says, "Oh, you're gonna love coffee." I didn't, but I will. Like he says, just take it down. Like so, I do it like a shot,
yeah.
and
If you don't like it, that's the only way to do it, and I can't say that I would enjoy sitting and sipping an espresso, but I could take a shot of just about anything. So it's kind of interesting. I knew you didn't drink coffee. I knew that, but I did not
yeah.
know that you did not drink anything caffeinated as far as like tea or
No,
do you drink soda at all? No?
no, I don't like soda.
And I'm not a big soda drinker.
No,
I like fountain sodas in the
need
right
my
like
water.
yeah, I
Need my water
also
bottle.
am a big I don't know if you can be a, endurance athlete and not have a bottle of water near you at all times. Uh, but that's I'm glad that you definitely can, get this energetic without having
Yeah.
piles and piles of coffee. I wasn't a coffee drinker, hated coffee until my brother came to me once and he was like, no, no, no. I was like, why are you drinking that gross stuff? I was, probably early 20s. And
Yeah.
he was like, it's not, it's a mocha. You just don't know what this tastes like, because growing up, like we didn't have all these fancy foofy coffee drinks. And
Right. Right.
I'm not 20 anymore. But he got me trying it and then I became basically a junkie just like everyone else and we had a mobile espresso van outside of my office when I was my first office ever and so it was so convenient you just walk down at 8 a.m. and go get your
Yeah. Yeah.
coffee. So no, I'm a junkie
I
like everyone else.
a friend of mine, we were doing one of those Ragnar races once, and a friend of mine had this caramel latte something. I was like, wow, I'm like, I love caramel. I said, that sounds great. And I was like, oh no, it just tastes like coffee. I was like, we need more. I was like,
Yeah,
then I'm just drinking caramel. I was like, I don't know
right.
what
Turns out I
to
just
do.
like the milk and sugar. Like
Yeah.
I don't
So,
actually want to drink the coffee.
no,
Turns out
no.
I just like milk and sugar, but I like some coffee flavor. There's definitely a balance there, but
Yeah.
it's all, to each their own. If you
That's right.
ever
Eh,
run an ultra, you may find yourself thinking that Coke is the most amazing thing on the planet when you hated Coke before that. I
yeah. Now that
Everybody swears to it. I didn't think so either because I hadn't drank soda really in a long time, and then I was like, oh my god, this is the elixir of the gods right here. This Coke.
yeah. Oh no, that's a different situation. That
It will be
is,
like your
yeah.
Iron Man pre-workout. That's like you get that hit mid-race and you're like,
Yep.
oh yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, it was really exciting chatting with you. I appreciate that we got to talk about, types of coaching and your book, Forward is a Pace. Check it out. You can buy it through Amazon and I'm sure other
Yeah. You
outlets.
just
We have
forwardisapacebook.com.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
forwardisapacebook.com. We also have our normal fireside chat coming up on Tuesday. I hope that everyone will join us for that. And as always, check out the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. You can even view it on YouTube. Thanks, Adina, for hanging out with me this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Lori. It's good to see you.